Hi, everyone. Let me start by introducing myself. And I'm the head of the Digital Education Support Team at UCL. The support team is one out of the 7 teams in the Digital Education department at UCL. I've been working in higher education for 11 years, had a variety of roles, and my main areas of expertise and interest are learning design, staff development and training, systems and design thinking, and because we had a party last evening, I wanted to highlight what I got as a birthday present this year, a DJ controller. You can see the photo there on the slide. That's me trying to work out what all the buttons do, watching an online tutorial, walking the talk with online learning. So yeah, hopefully I'm gonna keep up this hobby for a while and not do what I usually do, which is move on to another one very soon. So for today, I'm going to introduce the baseline and all the key resources we use to help with the implementation. I am part, just to clarify, of a central team. We do have colleagues in faculties as well who are learning technologists, and we work very closely. But yeah, there are a few implementation insights that I'm going to share. There's going to be a few minutes for you to actually go through the baseline recommendations, talk about it with people. If you're not sitting next to anyone, maybe you want to move a bit closer to someone because there's going to be a group activity discussion. And then we're going to have time for Q&A as well. So in terms of the baseline, the most important thing is the experiences of our learners. That's why we need one. And this visual meme was created by a student during a focus group that I ran recently. So the image is a monkey that's looking quite perplexed, confused, and the caption the student came up with is, "When you need to find anything on Moodle." And I'm sure we all had that experience, but we all know that it's not fair to blame Moodle. And very often as part of our roles, I imagine this is something we have to explain to our colleagues. Because with the same ingredients, you can make the pancakes on the left and the pancakes on the right that look much better. So in a way, the baseline is there to help provide a yummy recipe for the foundation of your pancakes. But then the toppings, the quality of the ingredients, how much you think about how you, let's say, arrange things, that is something we can't really control. But the baseline in Moodle should at least provide a very strong foundation for people to then experiment with their courses. So what is the baseline? It's actually a set of 26 recommendations that are structured into 6 sections. And it's a means of outlining expected standards and guidelines. Really, the aim of it is to make sure we have as many consistent and accessible Moodle courses, and we also use it to signpost staff development opportunities. And our baseline, just to clarify, is for both blended and fully online courses. We don't have separate baselines for online courses. So can you just please help me understand if you have a baseline or anything similar in your organization, like a set of minimum standards so I could see? Okay, it's not the majority, but quite a few of you. It would be really lovely to hear from you during the Q&A and also during the group discussion if you want to talk about your experience with colleagues in the room. That would be much appreciated. Another way of describing the baseline is actually through the eyes of one of our academic colleagues who sent us this quote recently. She was updating, designing a Moodle course that she's taken back over after 6 years. She said it really needed a lot of work. And the baseline was there as a helpful checklist that reminded her of aspects she would otherwise have forgotten. So this really, I think, shows the essence of what we're hoping the baseline to do, which is to be a guide on the side that can help any academic from any discipline, from any context, no matter if they're working on a full redesign of their Moodle course or want to focus on a specific aspect. So now let's move on to some, the show and tell part of my presentation. I'm going to show you the baseline and where it's hosted on our website. That it's publicly available, so you'll be able to find it after the talk as well. But I'm also going to show you these key resources that we have put in place to help with the actual implementation of the baseline, so putting it into practice. We have a central Moodle template that's available every time staff requests a new course. Implementation resources that are signposted against each part of the baseline, workshops, and we also work, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, with colleagues and faculties to create departmental specific Moodle templates. So, this is the baseline. So if you search for it online, UCL Digital Education Baseline, you'll be able to find this website. We talk about what it is, who is it for. We clarify all these aspects around the template as well. We also highlight if it's been endorsed by specific committees, because that's very important, as we know, so that's also really crucial. Highlight the available support, and then this is the baseline itself. It is structured into these 6 sections, and I'm not going to go through all the recommendations. I'm just going to highlight the sections. As I said, you'll have time to do that as part of the group discussion. But the first one is around the structure of the Moodle course and navigation. Then we have a set of recommendations for orientation, communication, and support. So this is to clarify the engagement expectations for students and foster a sense of community. The third section is around learning and teaching resources and learning activities. Okay, then a very important one, assessment, feedback, and academic integrity. The fifth one is around accessibility, copyright, and data protection. And although we have a separate section for accessibility, that doesn't mean that it's not relevant for the other ones, but we still wanted to make sure we highlight this as a standalone important area as well. And last but not least, this section around continuous module dialogue and quality assurance is there to just remind colleagues that it's important as part of module evaluation questionnaires, which we refer to as continuous module dialogue at UCL, to also gather feedback from students about Moodle courses and to work together with colleagues as part of quality assurance processes to agree a common implementation of the baseline across their program. Because, of course, they can adapt it according to their discipline and needs, but this common implementation is key when it comes to the learner experience and making sure they're getting the yummy pancakes and not ending up with the other version of the pancakes that weren't that appealing. So this is the template on our actual Moodle instance. So we are using Moodle 4.5, in case anyone's wondering. As you can see, this is not really mirroring the exact wording from the baseline. We have adapted it so that academics can then just start modifying the sections. So the first ones around general, before you begin, keep in touch, are around orientation and support. We try to make sure that the headings are short and straightforward. And let me just show you an example. So we have also used this template to push central resources that are available, such as this course that we have, that's an introduction to UCL's education platforms, and this is a course for students. So this is like a skeleton that pre-populates courses, and then staff can make the adjustments that they need. And for example, in the assessment section, this is where we have a lot of important information that they need to include. So it is a bit more wordy, but there's important things here that they need to highlight, including the use of AI tools in that specific module. Okay, so moving on to now, this is the SharePoint that we launched recently that we use to signpost relevant resources according to each section of the baseline. So you can see we have all of the sections here. And then in each one, we have the recommendations. And then depending on what staff want to focus on, they can see we have mapped out all the existing resources against that specific recommendation, and they'll be able to find a mix of step-by-step guides, self-paced courses, or workshops that are relevant. Okay, so now that you've seen the baseline, you've seen the key central resources that we have that help with the implementation of it, I just want to clarify that the baseline is not a set of enforceable standards. At the moment at UCL, the baseline is a set of recommendations that has been endorsed by key educational committees, but it's not something that is enforced or monitored in a formal way. It can be used as part of quality assurance processes. For example, it's promoted as part of design workshops in the early phases of program and module development. And like I showed you, the baseline recommendations themselves are not a Moodle template, they inform our Moodle template. When it comes to the actual principles and resources that have been guiding the development of the baseline, we've always used a variety of metrics that are important institutionally and nationally. Colleagues from the UK will be very familiar with these. We also have, for example, looked at the Office for Students blended and online regulations. Again, this is a key independent regulator for higher education institutions in England. We are, as part of the recent update that we did, we have been benchmarking it against other baselines from UK universities, and also really trying to build on recent research in learning technology and digital education. I really recommend this report from JISC, Beyond Blended, Rethinking Curriculum and Learning Design. And we are constantly trying to gather feedback from our main users, academics and students, and our colleagues based in faculties. This is a moment where I have to really acknowledge that UCL is one of the first universities in the UK to have a resource like this. And there's been, throughout the years, many, many colleagues who I've listed here in alphabetical order. I really apologize if I left anyone out. I wish I had time to read out everyone's name. But as you can see, this is work that's been happening for many years. And we just recently, in 2025, my colleague Antonella Veccia and myself updated it just to make sure it has up-to-date information and really focus on the experience of using the baseline. Because if you've seen the UCL baseline before the recent update, it was long. It was 2,400 words long. Colleagues said it was a bit intimidating when they first saw it. So that's a bit of advice. If you are considering creating a baseline, try to create pathways and different levels so that colleagues don't feel intimidated by all the recommendations. Although they're really helpful recommendations, maybe it's just, you have to be careful. It's not too much too soon. So this is a video that my colleague who couldn't come here has prepared. She's going to tell you a bit about what was our priority in this recent update that we did to the baseline.
Hi, I'm Antonella Veccia, learning designer in the digital education team at UCL. I hope you're enjoying MoodleMoot so far. It's great to be part of such a buzzing event, even remotely. You've already heard from my colleague, Irina, about the updated digital education baseline and reasons for its revision. I'll briefly share how we approached this new version in the context of a large, complex institution like UCL. So our priority was to support busy colleagues using it. That's why we wanted to provide something quick to grasp, adaptable, and practical. In other words, a tool that sets expectations and gives a snapshot of what a good digital learning experience looks like for students. So with that in mind, we focused on three things: clarity, flexibility, and support. So for clarity, we made it super easy to navigate. Just 6 core principles, each with a short, actionable description. We also used plain, accessible language, so it's clear across roles, and end users don't need to be specialists to understand it. For example, we avoided educational or technical jargon. Instead of saying, set up a Q&A forum and enable subscription notifications, it simply says, provide a space for students to discuss topics and ask questions.
Okay, so I think the point Antonella made is that we do work with quite a lot of academics. Some of them have not used Moodle before, so if the first recommendation that they see is very jargon, technical heavy, they might find it very difficult to engage with that, but then that's why we have the implementation resources that introduce Moodle-specific guidance and other guidance related to all the other educational technologies we use.
Hi.
So before we move on to the group discussion and Q&A, this is the last part of my presentation. I just wanted us to take a few steps back to think about why do we need a baseline. You could think about Moodle as a bridge between the independent study that students do and then the teaching sessions that happen either in a classroom or online. It's ultimately an extension of the classroom. And we have all sorts of bridges in the world. I took this analogy a bit, further. Sad bridges that collapse very easily when there's maybe too much load or, let's say in the context of Moodle, content on them. Then we have average bridges, London Bridge, does the job. Is it memorable? No. And then we have bridges that if you ask civil engineers, well, what's a bridge? That's amazing, Think how, for example, in Hong Kong, I'm told by civil engineers is amazing. It's memorable. It's something that is really innovative. The baseline is there to ensure that our Moodle bridge has a strong design. Of course, it all sounds very positive. You can have a brilliant baseline that's evidence-informed, co-created with staff and students, but the reality is that there's so many factors that impact course design and the baseline implementation. I added a reference at the bottom from colleagues like Agostino, Masterman. I think it's just important to acknowledge, and we live this reality, many of us, I imagine. There's policies, there's workplace culture, leadership styles, team structures, workload, the support that's available to our academic colleagues or to people like myself in the professional services team, the constant technological changes, and people's experiences and approaches to learning and teaching, they all have an impact on how they approach designing the Moodle courses. So for that reason, we really are now focusing on an iterative implementation of the baseline and really trying to highlight, as part of our workshops, as part of our conversations with colleagues, we're going to try to strengthen that on our actual guidance as well. Just choose an area, choose somewhere where it's a priority for you, for your department, for your program, or even for your module. Start somewhere, review what needs to be done, agree those changes, articulate the benefits, and then after you're done implementing those, tackle another part of the baseline. Because as we know, it's very, very difficult to try to do a full, proper course redesign all at once. So now I invite you to do this exact thing. Just scan the QR code or just go online and look for UCL's Digital Education Baseline. Choose one section you would prioritize in your context. Think about why you choose that section and what would be some considerations or barriers you might need to address. And talk to the person next to you for the next 5 minutes about this. Okay, so if you could please wrap up. It's a shame that I can see you're still talking, but let's just wrap up the presentation and move on to Q&A. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much. Before we start the Q&A and the group discussion debrief, I just want to make it clear that we're very open at UCL to collaborate on standards and patterns for digital education baselines, evaluation processes, implementation processes. We know these are complex challenges, so we're only going to be stronger if we collaborate. Or if anyone wants any help with setting up a baseline for the first time, please get in touch. I'd be very happy to help. So, yeah, question time.
Thank you. Very insightful. I was wondering about what do you do about placeholder or guiding text not being changed? Because it's always a problem with this type of thing.
It is always a problem, and it's something that we want to focus on, to have ways of actually not only updating text, but also adding new resources. Like, for example, with Gen AI, we might be creating new guidance. We want to have ways to actually push these resources very easily at any time of the year to Moodle courses. So that's something that definitely, if we do form a group, it's something we could focus on. That's a really good question.
Hi.
Okay, I can see you now. Yes, hi.
Hi, sorry. You mentioned that the baseline is not a mandatory step, right? I'm just curious about your experience in the adaption, because in my organization, we're also trying to do some baselines and some templates that we're kind of struggling on the adaption for the users.
Yeah, that's why I had this slide. There's so many things, and it's because it's such a large organization. It's one of the largest universities in the UK. We have so many disciplines, we have so many setups, and the barriers to adoption are different depending on each context. Sometimes even in the same department, you might have program teams that are using the baseline and others that don't even know that the baseline exists. So I think in terms of adoption, it's really important to try to work as closely as possible with the local champions. Of course, we know this is something that helps, and try to gather evidence of the impact, of the positive impact, so that hopefully in the future it can be something that's a little bit more, let's say not fully mandated, but maybe parts of it. If we have enough evidence over time that this is something that helps with the student, retention, engagement, why not try to put those cases forward for, our colleagues in all departments and our senior colleagues.
Thank you.
Nice.
Hi, Irina. Thank you so much for introducing this. And my question is, are you then having different templates based on faculties so that they can still bring their own flavor in and different possibilities?
That's a great question, something that, thanks for giving me the chance to clarify. So there's already some departments have their own departmental Moodle templates. So the recommendations themselves, they work for all disciplines. But then when you implement the template and you use the baseline as guidance, you might actually create some parts that are specific only to your discipline, to your learning and teaching approach. So that already exists, and we are, now that we've revamped and relaunched the baseline, going to work with I can see some of my colleagues from faculty in the audience, and we're going to start collaborating with them.